Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you may be listening to this. Welcome or welcome back to the Diet Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Sutton Duff. This is episode 10 of the Diet Therapy Podcast, where the best medication is good conversation. So you guys know we're going to get into a couple topics today. I know I have been on a slight little hiatus since around the holidays, but it was because I am in the process of currently redesigning my little studio here. If you haven't noticed, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on SoundCloud or Apple Podcasts or wherever else you get your podcasts at, I would, recommend you watch on YouTube. Check it out on YouTube every now and then. I'm going to be adding, visuals and things like that to the show. So that'll be something to be on the lookout for. But yeah, you can find me on YouTube at the Diet Therapy Podcast, or you can just look up Sutton Def. It'll also pop up. Also, I wanted to take a moment before I go ahead and dive into our first topic of the day to give a shout out to this windbreaker I have on here. This is a overlooked, underrated Oler, O-L-U-R, and it's pronounced Oler, like polar without the P. Oler, like I said, stands for overlooked, underrated. It's a clothing brand that I'm really trying to kick off, where it's basically supposed to be able to motivate those who feel like they are overlooked or underrated, whether it be in their craft, whether it be just in life in general. And it's just supposed to be able to motivate. Another kind of symbol of it is there's a moon, there's a crooked moon. And the crooked moon symbolizes it's not perfect, but it's slept on. And that's kind of like the whole premise of overlooked, underrated. So if you do want to go ahead and purchase one of these windbreakers, this is the navy blue with the yellow stitching Oler windbreaker, then you can check it out online on Twitter or Instagram. You can find me at SuttonDef, SUTTONDEF. The website is coming very, very soon. But if you want to order one right now, right this second, like I said, you can direct message me on Twitter or Instagram at SuttonDef, SUTTONDEF. It's not only the windbreaker. So we have the hoodies as well with the big Oler logo across. If you check out my social media, you'll see those as well. But those come in either white or black right now. And I'm also working on other colors for these windbreakers as well. So that's all exciting. I'm excited that this is episode 10. I'm looking to do this a lot more now that I'm getting my studio. The way that I want it to. It's still incomplete. It's not finished quite yet, but we're getting there, baby steps, one step at a time. But today is, what is today? Today is February 11th. And in 3 days is Valentine's Day. So Valentine's Day is a holiday, of course, as you all know, where we go out and we buy gifts and we, treat our loved ones to dinner, and it's based around romance. Now this year I kind of did a little bit of thinking, and I kind of want to go back to the origin of Valentine's Day to kind of figure out what exactly does this holiday mean, like where does it really come from. So I discovered that Valentine's Day actually the origin of it was from a ancient Roman fertility festival. It was called Lupercalia. And that was basically just like a festival where I guess they celebrated fertility in women and, making babies and things like that. So, it's ancient Roman times, things were different back then. But basically it was later changed, like the name of that day was later changed to Valentine's Day. Saint Valentine's Day. And it was named after a guy who was secretly marrying people when marriage was outlawed in that time. And because the current emperor had outlawed marriage for young men because he thought that young men that were single made better soldiers. They're not emotionally tied to, a wife and kids, that sort of thing. And they can fight with a clear head. So, this guy named Saint Valentine was marrying people on the low, on the hush. He ended up getting executed because of it. And the Pope at the time had later on declared that day, February 14th, that was Valentine's Day. So it basically it comes from marriage. It comes from the idea of marriage and, two people joining hands in holy matrimony and all that good stuff. So fast forward to 2020. here we are with Valentine's Day coming up in just a couple of days, depending on when you are listening to this, or it might have just passed. Like I said, whenever you're listening to this, but Valentine's Day is coming up. And I had the question posed that, is Valentine's Day is it really a holiday for both sexes, or is it mainly just a holiday for women? Now, in my personal opinion, I think that Valentine's Day is definitely a woman's holiday. I definitely do think that Valentine's Day is sort of like a mini birthday for women, in the sense that the whole holiday is geared towards men pleasing their women. And just the same way that, your man would please a woman on her birthday, kind of does similar things on Valentine's Day, takes her out to eat, maybe has like a nice hotel with rose petals on the bed. And, there's gifts depending on how far along the relationship is. It really does depend on the relationship, on whether or not it's a women's holiday or a man's holiday, or is it both? It really does depend on the relationship. And that's a lot of the responses that I got when I actually kind of polled people about this. But I do think that it is more so geared towards women. And I did a poll and I had somebody respond. My friend Shannon, actually, shout out to Shannon if she's listening. But she basically had said that Valentine's Day is marketed towards women. And that's something that I totally agree with. I think that, you see the commercials, the advertisements, even social media. Social media is a huge part in it now, because every year you see somebody who goes viral, or mainly women. You see women or a man, like they go viral based off of what their spouse did for them, or what they did for, I don't want to say spouse, but partner, what they did for their partner for Valentine's Day. Somebody might have, like I said, got a hotel room, decorated, did something really special, really sweet, kind of mimicking almost like a birthday, because you want to surprise somebody with something on their birthday. You want to give them nice things, treat them well, that sort of thing. It just seems like Valentine's Day is more so swayed towards women because of the fact that it's based around romance. And I know I said it comes from marriage, but, marriage and romance, they don't, fall too far from the same tree. So women weigh romance a lot heavier than men do. It's just fact. Most women are more, romantic, or fantasize about romance more than men do. And Valentine's Day is a holiday that it revolves around romance. So, and us as men, we always want to be able to please our women. So we go out of our way to do whatever we can in order to make sure Valentine's Day is a special day for her. Because if I'm gonna be honest with you, most men, we really don't care too much about Valentine's Day. That's just being brutally honest. We really don't. But what we do care about is seeing our women happy. So, we'll go out of our way. We'll do the things to make the day special, that sort of thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with, and if you're a man and you do genuinely enjoy Valentine's Day, I understand that too. But nevertheless, I did a poll on Twitter and I asked the question. I said, is Valentine's Day a woman's holiday, or do both sides actually enjoy and benefit from it? So far it's got about 73 votes. 53.4% of people said that it's mainly for women, and 46.6% of people said men enjoy it just as much. So, and for a good part of the day, while I was watching this poll kind of develop after I posted it, it was pretty even, and it still is pretty even, 53% to 46%. That's still pretty close. So that goes to show that a lot of people have, different opinions on this. But I definitely do think that the 53.4% is right. It is mainly for women. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said before, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a holiday where we cherish one another. But we all know that at the end of the day, it's more so the man, treating his woman out and making sure that she has a special day. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, like I said. Now, A lot of the responses that I got, because I also posted this on Instagram to get a lot of people's opinions, and I had a lot of women responding, telling me that yes, it's mainly geared towards women, but it shouldn't be like that. And this is where I kind of want to open up a discussion. If you're a woman and you're listening to this podcast, you can @ me on Twitter, or, message me on Instagram, or get in contact. However, I just want to know your opinion. Do you genuinely think or believe or desire for Valentine's Day to be more geared towards, both parties in the relationship? Because if you ask me, it sounds like you got it sweet on that day. Like I said, Valentine's Day is literally like a mini birthday for women in relationships. The guy's going to make sure that she has a special day. He treats her out to dinner, gets her gifts, especially, like I said, depending on the relationship. If they really love each other, he's going to do those things. And what's expected out of her at the end of the day is going to be less of what's expected out of him in terms of how much effort you should put into that day. So that's why I think that Valentine's Day is definitely a woman's holiday. But again, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And like I said, if you have any differing opinions on that, if you think that I'm wrong, which is totally fine, you can hit me up on Instagram or Twitter. I'm going to keep plugging @SuttonDef, SUTTONDEF. Also, like I said before, if you're just now looking at the visual, on YouTube, you can order one of these windbreakers I have on. If you also hit me up @SuttonDef, SUTTONDEF on Twitter and Instagram. But the website is coming soon for my older merchandise products. So that's enough of that. Valentine's Day is coming up and I'm excited. My girlfriend is not in the country, so I won't be able to physically spend the day with her. But, I think that it's still going to be a good day. So shout out to my girlfriend, by the way. I love you. Also, next, I wanted to talk about kind of switching gears here. If you've been listening to this, I am about to talk about some sports stuff. I want to talk a little bit about, I haven't seen you guys since the Super Bowl. I wanted to touch on that really quick, just how the whole NFL season kind of wrapped up. So the Chiefs beat the 49ers. Of course, everyone knows 31-20, I believe it was. And I thought that the game was good. I feel like it was a lot better than the game last year that we got with the Patriots versus the Rams. I mean, I think any game would have been better than that game. But honestly, I would give the Super Bowl, if I had to rate the Super Bowl on a scale from 1 to 10 on just in terms of how good it was, like the game, the commercials, the halftime show, excuse me, I would probably give it a 6 out of 10. I think the end of the game, it did get exciting, but the whole middle portion of the game was kind of like a lull of little to no action. So for that reason, I would give it a 6. But just in terms of how the whole NFL season wrapped up in general, I thought this was a really good season. The 100th season of the NFL. I thought it was a really interesting season. The storylines developed really well, and I'm really excited to see what happens next season, especially with teams with a lot of young talent. I'm still excited to see what Pat Mahomes is going to do next. He already has a ring. He'll be entering his 4th season, but 3rd season starting. He's already got a ring under his belt. You've got guys like Lamar Jackson, woo big trust, who, is going to be going into his 3rd year now. And we'll see what he brings to the table, now that more, what they say every year about Lamar Jackson. There's more film on, there's more tape. Teams are going to be able to slow him down easier, yada, yada, yada. You guys know the whole nine. But yeah, guys like that. And then also guys like Drew Lock, Kyler Murray. I just can't wait to see what a lot of the young talent has to offer in the upcoming years in the NFL. But like I said, I think that the NFL, the way that the season wrapped up, it wrapped up rightfully so. I think the Chiefs did deserve a Super Bowl, especially, considering how they went out last year. Pat Mahomes did everything in his power to get to the Super Bowl, but it just did not work out that way. So I was glad to see him get one this year. Also, of course, Andy Reid getting his first Super Bowl in, the 20 some years that he's been coaching. So yeah, that was the Super Bowl. And then I also wanted to talk about now that the Super Bowl is over, normally we don't have football after the Super Bowl, but now we have the XFL. And the XFL is a league that's making a comeback because it was in existence back in 2000, 2001, ran and owned by Vince McMahon, the owner or the chairman of the WWE. So we know he's got long money, old money. I think that the XFL is something that is highly intriguing to me. And I think that it can definitely last. Depending on a couple of things. But first, I just want to talk about what I like about or what I love about the XFL. So first of all, who doesn't like spring football, right? Spring football is something that, we kind of got a taste of last season with the AAF, but it failed because, they didn't have the capital, the finances to, support it year in it. Well, not year in, but game in and game out. So they ended up shutting down. But spring football is just something that, you're at a bar with your buddies on a Saturday night and, you're at a sports bar, right? And there's basketball on, but the game's not that good. You don't really like baseball, tennis is on, something like that, tennis highlights, but there's also professional football, something to look at. You don't got to take it too seriously because the XFL, it's a new league. Nobody's really emotionally invested into any of the teams yet. You can kind of just watch it and be entertained. And that's why I think that, spring football and the idea of spring football is very good in 2020, especially because, there's also a bunch of more opportunities for like sports gambling, which is becoming more and more legal in more and more places. And then also it just generates more sports talk and just interest. If you love sports, if you love football, you hate to see football go from the months of February to September. It would be nice to have something for at least a couple months while we wait for the NFL to come back. And the XFL does that perfectly. Now, the other thing that I like about the XFL that I love, about the XFL, is that the rules are lit. The rules are crazy. So kickoffs, extra points. Kickoffs are basically like, they have and I'm not going to be able to explain this like totally correctly right now, but kickoffs are basically like somebody kicks off the ball and then the two teams, they stand 5 yards apart from each other and they can't engage until the kick returner catches the ball. So basically what that does, it allows for the kick returner to not get smacked by somebody who's been running downhill 30 yard, not 30 yard, but for 30 yards and running at like close to 20 miles an hour. So it makes it safer. And it also makes it so there's really only one big line of defense that the kick returner has to go through in order to, break a big play, break a big run, and possibly score a touchdown. And that's something that just elevates the excitement of a play in football that normally doesn't excite anyone. Normally, you see a kickoff, they normally just let it go through the back of the end zone. So, we're stalling there. No real action, or they'll field the kick return and then they'll run it up for around, on average, maybe 14, 15 yards before they're tackled because there's just a swarm of guys there and it's basically impossible to, return kicks, especially since they had pushed it. They pushed it back a couple years ago. They pushed the kicking line back for kickoffs. Also, extra points. There's no more, kicks like points after, PATs. There's no more PATs. You can't just kick field goals anymore to get that extra point. You can either go for it from the 2 yard line, the 5 yard line, or the 10 yard line. I believe the 2 yard line gets you 1 point if you make it, if you convert. The 5 yard line gets you 2 points, and then the 10 yard line gets you 3 points. So just constant excitement. Just, you score a touchdown. Now you have to see if you're going to go for the 1 point conversion, the 2 point conversion, or the 3 point conversion. It's just awesome. If you ask me, I think that it just keeps the viewer entertained and intrigued at all times instead of having points in the game like in the NFL where it's like, OK, they scored a touchdown. Now I can go get a snack or I can go to the bathroom, that sort of thing. And sometimes those little breaks are good. But that's why we have commercials, So the rules are lit. It makes the game exciting, not only more exciting, but also safer, like I said, at the same time. Also, another rule that I did not know about before yesterday is that teams punting the ball. If you punt the ball and say you are on the 50 yard line or beyond, So your punt has a high chance of going out the back of the other team's end zone. If that happens, it counts as a 1-yard punt. So basically, you turn the ball over on downs if you punt on fourth down and you're kind of close to enemy territory, or you don't punt it out of bounds. So that is something that is a game changer, because now a lot more teams are going to be going for it on fourth down, especially fourth and short situations, midway throughout the field, around that area of the field. It's just going to make it a lot more exciting. A lot more chances are going to be being taken, and it's going to be interesting to see what these coaches and what these players have to offer with this new rule set around the game. Another thing that I love about the XFL is also the presentation. The presentation is absolutely beautiful. So of course, it reminds us of the NFL. It looks just like the NFL, really. But of course, there's slight differences. So the way that they take you through the game, it kind of tells a story. Because there's players that are like mic'd up live. Like I was watching one of the games, the quarterback, he's mic'd up like throughout the play. Like the play was blown dead and you can hear exactly what he's saying loud and clear to his coach. Something we don't normally see. Normally, you're just listening to the commentators, talk over what's going on in the game. But with the XFL, they actually take you down on the field with the players. You can hear what they're saying. Also, people who make like big plays, like say somebody just got an interception or just scored a touchdown or just caught a big play or something like that, or had a big hit, something like that. They actually interview those players on these sidelines. Like as soon as they come out of the game, they're interviewing them to see, where their head is at and how they just executed the play, how they did what they just did, so on and so forth, that sort of thing. I think that's awesome. I think that is something that, the NFL should definitely adopt. And I feel like a lot of aspects of the XFL will be adopted by the NFL, especially like some of the rule changes. I think that the kickoff thing is too genius not to copy. I think that the NFL totally copies that. I feel like they will probably totally copy the extra point. Maybe sometime in the future, they might have like a counter argument or something like that on how, their way of doing it is better. But if you ask me, and if you ask the average football fan, they're going to tell you that, PATs, they're not exciting. Nobody really cares about that play. Nobody really cares about kickoffs. Nobody really cares about punts. So all in all, the XFL is doing everything that the NFL is not doing. And that's why, it's refreshing. It's something that, we can look at and we won't have a bunch of complaints about it. Excuse me. We won't have a bunch of complaints about it. I think it's something that we can genuinely expect to see in the long run. Like I said, because it's backed by Vince McMahon. We know Vince McMahon has money. It's backed by a bunch of smart people who know what they're doing, who know how to invest their money the right way. This league is going to rely upon its stars, though. That is one thing that they really do have to start trying to build faster, is their star power. So they've already got, Cardale Jones, who was, ex-Ohio State player, was with the Los Angeles Chargers very briefly. There's also Philip Walker, who had like 3 or 4 touchdowns in week 1 of the XFL. And it was awesome to see, him play. I never even heard of the kid before, but, so they just have to really focus on their stars, and we'll see, because it's only a 10-week season. I'd say about around week 5, we'll know which players are going to be kind of the face of this league and which players are going to be kind of driving this league forward. And what's really cool is that these guys get paid, and each team gets paid $100,000 a game. And I'm not sure if that is per team, per player. I have to do some more research on that. But I think that is really cool that these guys get paid. And there's teams basically spread out across the cities in America, which is also really cool. Ooh. But yeah, the XFL, all in all, I think that like I said, presentation is beautiful. The rules are great. It's making things safer. And then also the last thing was like the refereeing. So the refereeing in the NFL, it's been largely criticized in the past couple years because of the fact that refs are either interfering too much at times with games, or they're not stepping in at the right times at all. Then, they're just missing blatant calls. So with the XFL, I think it's more so of a they kind of swallow their whistle a little bit more because they kind of are thriving off of the barbaric nature of the sport. It's football. So they want their players to be aggressive. They want big hits. They want those highlight plays because at the end of the day, that's what's going to get them on ESPN. That's going to get more people to watch the next game. It's going to get more money in the XFL's pockets. So with that being said, I think that the XFL is something that they are treating their refs like they're not taking it too seriously. They're not taking it as serious as the NFL does. They're not looking to what's the future of the XFL with like concussion protocol and like our players, getting CTE, that sort of thing. I don't think that they're so concerned about that right now, which is kind of dark and worrisome. But we do all know that this business is about making money. So this is what they're going to do until, if they can survive, like maybe a couple seasons, a couple years, I think that they'll start to adopt a little bit more of a strict refereeing system where they're not allowing as many big hits. They just want to be able to establish themselves first as the league that plays hard hitting, smash mouth, entertaining football. And that's awesome. It's like like I said, it's a fresher breath air from the NFL. The NFL feels so uptight and, business all the time. But the XFL is a little bit more laid back. Like I said, they're interviewing guys on the sidelines. The referees are swallowing whistles. So I think that the XFL definitely does have a future as long as their stars can back it up. All right. So we've been going for around 30 minutes now. This is a video episode. I don't like to make these ones too long, so I will wrap up soon. But I do want to leave you guys with my daily dose. And if you are a first listener on this podcast, the Daily Dose is a segment that I do. Like I said, this is the Diet Therapy podcast. So you're getting a daily dose, or kind of like a weekly dose. But I like to call it the Daily Dose, double D's. Yeah. So the Daily Dose is basically a segment where I will recommend either some piece of media, basically, whether it be a song, whether it be an album, whether it be a TV show, a movie that I watched recently, just something that I recommend for you guys to watch that I believe is very good and that I would also like to hear your opinions on as well. So this week, episode 10 of the Diet Therapy podcast is the Daily Dose. This week on the Daily Dose, I wanted to discuss the show The Circle on Netflix. It's a Netflix original. It's called The Circle. If you haven't watched it before or you don't know what it is, it's basically like it's a social media game. It's like a reality TV show, but it's being played through social media. So the characters are in a building and they never see each other. They're all in the same building, but they're in different rooms, like different apartments. They never see each other, but they can interact and communicate through the social media game called The Circle. It's a voice activated social media game that they have in their apartment. So they basically learn each other. They get to know each other. And basically they're competing because each episode somebody gets voted off the circle. And the last person remaining wins $100,000. So they're competing, and some of them are in there as themselves on the social media platform as themselves. Some of them are catfishes. So it's just interesting to see the dynamics of how they communicate, who is going for who, trusts who is making alliances. And it's also interesting because you really get to see how social media kind of affects people in the age range of, maybe 18 to 20 to 30. And just how we kind of interact with each other, who you can put your trust into. The people that we interact with online, are they who they say they are? It's just a really interesting dynamic because they bring a lot of different types of people. So you kind of start to stereotype, different ones and kind of draw your own conclusions about different characters. But it's a really entertaining show. You can definitely binge it. I did not binge it. I watched it like with my girlfriend. And I made her, because she binge watches everything, but I made her split it up this time, so she didn't just watch the whole thing in like, one day, like one sitting, because I don't like doing that. I'm not a huge binge guy. I like to savor good shows instead of just watching everything at one time and then not having anything else to watch. But like I said, Daily Dose this week is The Circle on Netflix. If you have seen it, let me know what you think about it. You can hit me up at Sutton Def, SUTTONDEF, Twitter or Instagram, or find me on Apple Podcasts to listen to this podcast. If you're listening to it somewhere else, at the Diet Therapy Podcast on YouTube, the Diet Therapy Podcast, SoundCloud, same thing, the Diet Therapy Podcast. But you can hit me up on there. Just tell me what you thought about it. Also, if you haven't seen The Circle yet, I would highly recommend going and checking it out. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this podcast for today. This podcast was brought to you in part by Oler Clothing. Like I said, if you'd like to order this beautiful windbreaker that I am currently wearing, which is coming out in some different colors soon, you can order this windbreaker if you just DM me on Twitter or Instagram at Sutton Def, or you can wait for my website to drop, which is coming very, very soon as well. Not only do we have windbreakers, we also have hoodies and shirts, and other things are coming soon as well. So, like I said, if you want to order that, you can hit me up. Other than that, that's going to be it for me, guys. This has been the Diet Therapy Podcast, episode 10. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.